Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya. Today I want to talk about what I'm calling BWISA's log frame for Kenya's Hustlers Fund. Yes, at these links, this one and this one, I have tutorials on a logical framework, and I promised to provide an example of a log frame. This was meant for my students and indeed even practitioners. You may wish to pause the video and copy those links if you want to listen to those ones. Now, just as a reminder, the log frame is a planning tool that sets out the objectives of a project and how they will be achieved. It's a very important tool and has many functions, or can be put to many functions, including this one. In its goal, it explains the long-term importance of projects to society or to beneficiaries. Therefore, it can be put to use as a strategic planning tool. It provides indicators to assess project progress and achievements, and therefore it is actually a monitoring and evaluation tool, an M&E tool. Now, through its if and then logic, it indicates the relationship between available resources, planned activities, and the desired changes or results alongside assumptions that must be held constant to achieve measurable results. Yes. And lastly, it helps to identify possible risks to implementing the project. And you see, once you identify risks, you can actually plan on how to mitigate against them. So those are some of the good things your log frame can be used to. Now, Kenya's Hustler Fund is set to be operational come 2023. Now, at these two links again, you may pause and take them. At these two links, I have discussed the Hustler Fund and post the learning from past mistakes philosophy. We learn from mistakes. Yes. And at this link, I provide results of research which I supervised on existing national funds like the UWESO Fund, the Women Fund, the Youth Fund, etc., etc. And that this is where me and my students learned the lessons that I would wish that the Hustler Fund doesn't repeat. The first lesson is that it was difficult for us to get any log frame, a log frame for that matter, in these funds, and therefore the function that we took there, strategic planning, monitoring and evaluation, risks and all that, were not well, taken care of in the existing funds because of one of that mistake, lack of a log frame. Now, to take my contributions to the Hustler Fund to the next level, I here provide my conceptualization of a log frame for the fund. So I'm saying this is my proposed log frame for Kenya's Hustler Fund. We know that is the structure of a log frame. A log frame has a vertical logic, that means the goal, the outcomes, the outputs, activities. It also has a horizontal logic, indicators or objectively verifiable indicators, means of verification, and assumptions. And of course, the narrative means we explain the goal, the outcomes, the output activities in that column of narrative. So let's now superimpose the Hustler Fund onto this structure of a log frame, and therefore probably generate a possible log frame or a log frame that I'm proposing for the Hustler Fund. The goal: summarizing and analyzing talk about this Hustlers Fund, I say that empowered bottom of pyramid for economic takeoff is one or my generated goal, that the Hustlers Fund wishes to address the bottom-up approach and therefore empower the bottom of the pyramid for that economic takeoff. That is what I think should or is the goal of the fund. It could be something else, but looked at it from whichever way you want, it is addressing the issues of the hustler, who is the bottom of the pyramid for that matter. Now, what the outcomes? The outcomes will be that the startups develop and grow. The hustlers, the bottom of the pyramid, start up businesses and grow them. Or the existing ones grow even faster. Ideally, it is reduction of MSE mortality, micro and even small enterprise mortality. So we are saying that if these outcomes are achieved, if startups develop and grow, if existing MSEs grow even faster, and if we reduce the mortality rates, then indeed the bottom of the pyramid will be empowered. Remember from if and then logic in my lecture on Log4, if we achieve these outcomes, then the goal will be achieved. Remember, we are saying if. Now the output, I envisage specialized hustler fund intermediaries. Yes, this hustler fund, if it be different from others and achieve even better results, should be handled by specialized intermediaries. It is not every intermediary that comes for the fund should be approved. I'm seeing entrepreneurship in this. When you talk of startups developing and growing mortality rate, so an intermediary who just gives money and no advice is not maybe necessary, but is not sufficient. So specialized hustler fund intermediaries. The outputs would also be empowered hustlers. That means the hustlers with the loans in their hands, with credit in their hands. That's the output of their system. And then trained. Indeed, you can have money, but without training, that money will go down the drain. So I'm envisaging those hustlers getting loans to be trained in one way or another. Then I expect functional business centers. I'm calling them business incubation centers, business acceleration centers. These are the outputs. Now, if we have all this, if we have proper intermediaries, if we have hustlers with the loans, and they are trained, and there are business incubator to support them, then we can have startups developing and growing. Then we have empowered bottom of the pyramid. So if we have these outputs, they will generate these outcomes. And these outcomes, if we have them, they will generate the goal. And finally, on this vertical logic, the activities. I know there will be many activities, but I identify key ones that select and vet county fund intermediaries. I'm envisaging a situation where every county has an intermediary to handle, one or two intermediaries to handle affairs in that county. It will be unnecessary to get each and every circle, every bank to be an intermediary. Indeed, even control and management becomes a little problematic. I am expecting that there will be a properly developed criteria for getting the loan. It's not just walk in, fill a form, and even the form you're filling, it must be like asking specific questions. The form should be used to get baseline data on the loanee, so that when it comes to monitoring and evaluation, that data that is on the form will help to do that M&A. I can see hustlers being provided by loans. I can see the loanees being trained like in GYBI, generate your business idea, start your business, indeed even improve your business and so on. And then I can see business incubation, business incubators, business accelerators set up. These are the ones that will sustain the management of the hustler businesses, the BDS, business development services being offered by them. So if these activities can be achieved, if we can have selected intermediaries in every county, if we have a proper loanee criteria that will give us information that we can use in monitoring, evaluation, follow-up, if we can have all this, then we can achieve the outputs. And if we achieve these outputs, then we shall achieve outcomes and on to the goal. But as I said earlier, assumptions. The log frame gives us things that we must hold constant for goals to be achieved. For example, for activities to be implemented, the assumption that corruption will not infiltrate the fund. Indeed, if it does, then the fund is dead. Qualified personnel must be available to handle the fund program. It is not just a question of signposting, deploying, taking from just any person in the bank or in a circle to handle the fund. They must be qualified. It's not just enough to keep the fund. It's also necessary to advise those taking the fund, and therefore such a person must be qualified. To get these outputs, again, corruption must be taken away, completely smashed. But with corruption, if there will be corruption, then is a false start. The funds must be availed timely. If someone has his own business plan to start, and we delay giving them the funds, then again, that will have a negative aspect to the entire goal of this fund. So, availability of enough funds timely. Then, business registration is seamless. Yes, I speak as a former chairman of the Kenya Investment Authority, and I know that we have improved a lot. But starting a business in Kenya is generally an expensive issue. We have addressed it, but we need even to address it further. The cost of starting a business in Kenya must be brought down if this fund has to succeed. For the startup development to develop and grow, we must have efficient and effective business development services. Like I already said, setting up business incubation, acceleration centers. Those BDS, business development services, should be provided to assist setting up and growing. And finally, for the empowered bottom pyramid for economic takeoff to be in place, the assumption is that the bottom-up philosophy is not abandoned. Because if we take it, leave it on the campaign trail, because this was very loud on the campaign trail, if we leave it there because we have actually achieved what we wanted, then this empowerment will not come by the way. So, this is the vertical logic, and these are the assumptions. Now let's look at the indicators. What will indicate that the bottom has been empowered for economic growth? Rate of reduced poverty, rate of unemployment or even employment. When we see that poverty is reduced, when we see that there is growing employment or reducing unemployment, then that will be an indicator that we are on our way for economic takeoff. For startups to develop and grow, the indicators will be number of business startups, rate of business growth and expansion. Yes, we should be able to register, to capture startups growing, and like we said, once we have baseline information, then any increase will now give us the rate of growing, and that will be an indicator that we are doing or not doing well. For outputs, the indicators will be number of approved hustler fund intermediaries, number of trained hustlers with credit, number of functional incubator and accelerator centers. All these are indicators to show that the outputs have been achieved. And for activities, the indicators will be number of intermediaries per county, number of hustlers with credit lines, number of trained hustlers, number of business incubators set up. Once we count all this, they will indicate whether or not the activities have been achieved. And now, what will be the sources of this information? Just talking about the indicators, where will you get them from? The Hustler Fund records. Once we start the activities, the records must be kept. So periodically we consult the records and see whether we are on track or not. That is exactly why I say we need specialized, special intermediaries, special personnel, qualified personnel. The same source of information, Hustler Fund records, to see that we have achieved the outputs. Just consult the records and we know either we have only 2 approved hustler centers or only a few trained. That will be the source of the information. And for outcomes, where should we get number of business startups? The rate of business growth. It should be national and county business registration. Departments that register businesses should be consulted to get whether the businesses are growing or number of the indicators of that growth. And finally, empowered bottom of the pyramid. Where shall we get the rate of reduced poverty, the rate of employment and unemployment? Should be national household surveys, most probably by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So this is my conceptualization of the Kenya's Hustler Fund. I'm convinced that if we do just half of what I've thought here, we shall be a lot better than the previous funds, which have done well but can do better. Thank you for subscribing. I really hope you have subscribed and watch out for more. Thank you.